All right. Okay. So as of now, I can only see Apurv, Ajay. Let me. Okay. So how is the preparation? You have done some preparation as of now?
Sir, I prepared for the first 10 questions that you have said, but not from the risk management topic and from the Basel norms. So I request you to please don't ask me from these topics. I would, you can take a mock from these the next
All right. Okay.
mock test. You can ask them, then the next mock test you can ask me.
Okay. 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 So maybe what we can do, we can just maybe you can prepare, we can have an doubt session class today. And if we are prepared, probably we can take mock in the next half, after. Yeah, hi, Abdul. Good morning. Good morning. So what I was no problem. So what I was talking to Ajay, maybe if we can have half of the class for doubt clearing sessions, you can maybe you can prepare right now also and can go through the slides and everything that I've shared with you. You can prepare them and you can ask your questions. Right, and if you feel like that you want to give your mock today, so then you can give your mock after 10, right? Or given we would have to take another session to complete the all the questions which I've shared with you. So I'll leave this choice with you guys. So either you can appear for the mock today, maybe after 10, once you go through the questions and everything, and you see like you are okay with that, or maybe what we can do, we can just we can use this entire class for the doubt session and discussion and all that, and the next class that we can either take on Saturday or Sunday, or Saturday Sunday, right? So that would be that can be the mock session, mock class, whichever way you feel it is comfortable, so that approach we can take
No, I
now.
think so. We can go for the first 10 questions after 10 o'clock. So for
Okay.
an hour, we can just go through the answers. And if there is one question or something, so we can ask you. And after then, you can, whosoever is there present today, they can just give it for the first 10 questions, and next Sunday, next 10 questions. So it's perfectly fine for me.
Okay, fair enough. So we can take this approach. So we can cover the 10 questions in today's class, as in for the mock. And,
so I'm not prepared yet, as I've only done 5 to 6 questions yet. So I don't think I'll be able to give today.
Okay, so for you, you can take the second option which I told you. So maybe you can use this time for preparation and everything. And if you have any doubt or anything in your mind, any question in your mind, we can discuss those questions today, right? And then you can appear for the mock in the next class that we will be having on next Saturday, right? So that way we can do.
So next Saturday it's like 10 questions, and then in Sunday 10 questions, or 20 questions on Saturday?
No, then it will be 20 complete, because then there will not be any point dragging it further. Like so we'll make it 20 complete. 20 complete, right? If in case you want to go for the next class, the next week, then it would be complete 20 questions. However, if you comfortable with the 10 question, probably we can cover it today, and the remaining one we can cover the next class. That is because I do not want to keep you engaged for long, and as you are also be feeling bit in terms of your course is already over, so you like to get rid of your mock thing and everything, so that you can use your this time for some other thing, whichever you are thinking for yourself. So the only intention is I want to close this as soon as possible. So maybe not today, then tomorrow, then in the next class, I would like to complete your mock and everything.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay. So what about Arifa, Neha? Are you okay with how good you are on the preparation? Arifa is there? Okay, so okay, Nia has written, "I'm not prepared well." Arifa has also written, "Not prepared well." Okay, okay. So which approach you want to take? How do you want to go about the mock interview? Do you want to go with the 10 question today, or you want to do all the 20 question next Saturday? Apur is saying that he is comfortable with the 10 questions this class, maybe
Sir,
after an hour or so. Yeah.
let it be
Yeah.
this way, right? Those who are comfortable for the first 10 questions for today, they can give it,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
the ones who are not ready, so they can give the next 20 questions afterwards, like Saturday or Sunday, whichever day is comfortable. And
Yes.
those who are left with 10 questions, they'll give with them only. So they'll just, for 10, you can take it for today. And for the next
Okay.
10, I can give it on Sunday then.
Okay.
Whichever day is probably suited for the Viva for next.
All right. Fair enough. So we can use this for an hour or so for your as in discussion and the questions, doubts, and everything that you have. Right, and you can prepare at the same time. You can go through the slides and whichever way you have studied. It is not, you might have partly studied from the slides, partly from other sources or resources that you have got. So whichever way you've studied, you can do that. That's not a problem. The only idea is that you should be having a fair amount of knowledge about those concepts or those things that you have studied. So you can do your preparation right now also while we are discussing the questions and everything. And if you have any doubt, any question, any clarification, or maybe anything that you have in your mind right now, you can certainly ask those things. And then probably after 10-15 or so, I can take the interview, at least for suppose I can take for the 10 questions, right? Because he is comfortable. And if anyone else in between feels that he or she can also go for the first 10 questions, then they can also uh, be stay. And then probably after 10-15 I'll let you leave, because I would be taking the mock interview for the people who would be ready for mock today. And for next, otherwise for the remaining ones, people who are not comfortable today, then they can appear for the complete 20 question next Saturday. Making sense?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So you guys can open up the question. Let me also open at my end, and let us now go through them. Anything new that you have read? Any positive, any negative news or anything for that matter that you have read in the past week or in the days in the previous week that you want to share, you want to discuss? You can also talk about them.
I think as China is under pressure, as now many countries are now targeting um, China because in the span of 20 years or so, 16 to 20 years, it has given 5 pandemics, 5 diseases, viruses to the world. SARS and COVID and two, three more. So, taking the due advantage of this situation, Taiwan is now planning to partner with other countries. Since Taiwan was suppressed by China's operations, but now Taiwan is taking the advantage and now making contacts with different countries.
Right, absolutely. And I also feel China should be made to pay for this crisis, given this is something which is not this is not something which can be taken lightly. It is a crisis which has really led to the whole world to tumble completely. And if we just take it as one-off case and country has just done it mistakenly and it has gone out of the control, and then probably it would not be the right precedent that would be setting. Then the other day some other country may come up with something of a similar kind, and this thing will continue happening. This was because if you look at the nature of the crisis, it is not something which could not be controlled. It could be controlled very well in the initial stage itself, but it reflects there was some sort of unwillingness to control it properly, or maybe there was some sort of hesitance to actually talk about or to take proper help of various other countries, or maybe in that sense the other international bodies who can actually do a better job in curbing and in stopping this crisis going in such a huge or massive way, because the way it has spread, it is huge and massive. But that is because they tried to suppress or they tried to hide the whole matter, which is really not good for any country, and especially for a country like China. It is at all not expected from them when they think of becoming the global leader, right? When they think of becoming the superpower, and on the other hand, if they do this kind of petty politics, with that they try to hide the things which has happened. They even try to silence the doctor who was initially involved in this whole thing, and who very clearly stated this crisis is not something which is uh, which can be taken lightly. He very clearly said, and they tried to silence the doctor also, and then they also influenced WHO. WHO did not do a good job in the whole thing. WHO, which could have identified this thing quite before they did it. They made this crisis a pandemic in the month of March only, which is again a question, which is again a question on the entire approach, or the way they have taken up this matter. So there are a lot of things which are being questioned, and this is something which has killed the livelihoods of many people. In a sense, many people have lost their life, lost their jobs, right? Many people have lost their businesses, and on top of it, there have been many crises in the past, in 2008, before Great Depression, and also such crises. But none of the crises has taken the lives of people. they the crisis would have taken jobs, and financially they have those crises did cripple people for their in their lives. But if we look at this crisis, it has given every possible every possible shock to the people. One, they lost lives. Another, they lost their economic health. So from all the dimensions, people suffered. And that is because one country could not manage something which was clearly manageable, in looking at the whole thing. So it is quite serious in nature, and China should be made to pay for this, and they should be made to pay in a sense by there should be some economic sanction, because the reason China is feeling very proud about everything, because they are able to do good in the economic world. They are really very well placed. They are really very well capable, and that is the only that is the only thing that really makes them very proud about themselves. And if there are sanctions placed on China, China would definitely realize what they are, and they will come on their knees on their own, and then they will realize it is not so easy to take things of this nature so lightly. So that is my take on the whole thing, and I do feel it is not serious. And this is in India, the things are yet to come, uh, are yet to reach a peak. In India, it is still not peak, right? It is just a normal situation which we are witnessing, and sooner or later, this is going to become very huge, massive. As of now in India, it was a lockdown situation, so things were quite manageable and controllable, right? But now things will have to move away from lockdown. You can't keep things under lockdown. How long can you do that? Because if you continue doing that, then you would be suffering from the other end. That is the economic front, and economic front is going to becoming more severe than what the your health priority that you have on the other side. So this is going to be like this is going to be double sword thing. This is going to be double sword to the people, and how people actually respond to this situation is really something to be seen, and it will be seen in the months and coming months and weeks ahead. But I'm really pained and really surprised with the approach China has taken in the whole matter. And on top of it, China has not even apologized once what they have done to the whole world. That is the that is the that is the worst part about the whole thing. They have not even apologized. They have not even said like this was something which was manageable. This was something which could be stopped at their end. So see the audacity of a country, like they have done uh, such such a huge massive damage they have done to the everyone in the world, and then also they're not ready to take a accountability, a responsibility for the matter. So that is the kind of the this is the uh, kind of power, or you can say they feel about themselves, right? They really feel strong about themselves. Okay. Anyone, anything else? Maybe anything, any other thing that you have read, you want to talk about, you want to discuss about? Okay, fair enough. So, guys, these questions that we're talking about, right? So you can go through first 10 questions because that is the first preference. You must be having these questions with you because I shared it with everyone, right? You can first go through the first 10 questions. If you're ready, probably I can cover the mock for them who are ready. And if you guys are not ready for today's class, as in for today's mock interview, then probably I will be covering the all 20 questions together in the next class. Rather, not the next class, I will say next mock session, I will say, because that will be the last mock session for this class. And so whichever way is comfortable, I don't want to make it rush, right? I want to take it in a manner which is comfortable to everyone. That's the reason I am leaving it up to you how you want to take it. You want to take it in today's class, or maybe you want to take it in the next class, whichever way it is comfortable. Okay. Okay, so I am not. I'm not reading every question because I'll leave it to you, because some of you would be clear with some questions, some of you would not be clear with the questions, right? So I want you to go through the questions and let me know which one you're not comfortable with. If you want me to elaborate on those questions, or you want me to, because it is not difficult, I think. It is just requires 2 readings, because 1 reading would not be enough, because you would not be, if you just go with a 1 reading, probably you'll not be able to remember everything when you actually appear for the mock interview, right? So if you take 2 readings of the slides of the PPTs that are given, probably it would be quite easy for you to give the mock interview. You will feel confident about the mock when you appear for it.
So 7th question.
7th question.
What are the different types of risks? So risk related to which major subject? So I could not make it. कि कौन सा major topic है जिसके अंदर risk वाला? Because to be honest, I studied from net, not from the slides of articles. So I haven't gone through those slides. So I was just searching on net कि what are the different things. वहाँ पे बहुत सारे different areas के fields के risk आ रहे हैं. Some related to corporate, some related to finance, some I could not make out. So if you can just elaborate on them, otherwise I don't have any doubt.
Okay, fair enough. So so here when we're talking about the broad and the broad risk that we are talking about, because we are just looking at and tying it back with the presentation that we have done, right? There are many risks, we know, in the financial world, a lot of risks which are there. So the primary and broadly the broad risks that we are talking about in this question are related to the ones that we covered in the risk PPT. So they are your operational risk, right? Then your market risk, then your credit risk, right? So these 3 risks are the main risks that we are focusing in under this question. And you just need to give an example of what the operational risk is, what is credit risk is, what is market risk is, right? So these 3 risks are the broad risks which we are trying to look at basis the question given to you, right? So operation risk, when the people involved in the operation, if they're not able to do the job properly, that's a risk to the operation, right? If the tools and the application that you're using for the operation, if that is not functioning well, it's a risk to the operation, right? If there is any natural calamity, that is a risk to the operation. If there is a fraud in the operation, that's a risk to the operation, right? If there is not enough training available to the people doing operation, there is a risk to the operation, right? So these are the examples of the operation risk. What operation risk is? Operation risk is all about the people who are engaged in the operation. They should have a fair knowledge about what the KRIs are, what are the various SOPs of the operation. They should be familiar with the work they are doing, They should know about the nitty-gritties of the process. One should not be untrained when he or she is doing the operation, because that entails a risk to the process. You fail, if a transaction is failed, right? It involves a risk. It may be a risk to the investor, it may be a risk to the client, it may be a risk to the counterparty, but there is a risk. So this is operation risk. When you look at the market risk, so market risk comes from the market movement. So market movement, when you talk about, it can be due to interest rate, it could be the price movement of the various securities, right? So it is you can divide the market risk into one is the systemic risk and non-systemic risk, right? So that we talked about in the previous classes also. So the systemic risk is which is for the whole system, and that can also have a domino effect as well. So uh, if there is a change of the interest rate of a bond in the bond market, that will have a market impact, market risk. It has a market risk. So the current existing bond would be not valued high. Why would you like to buy up the old bond when there is a new bond available giving you the higher interest rate? Right. Similarly, if there is a price movement of the various securities, or if there is a FX conversion, which is hugely tilted or moved to one particular country, then there is a risk. And how those risks are mitigated? Countries themselves have enough FX with them so that they can manage the FX movement in the country, right? So these are the market risk. This is the market risk which is coming from the market directly. And then the last one is the credit risk. Credit risk, you know what the credit risk is. So when you look at the credit risk, how you can also add Basel, how Basel is mitigating credit risk. Because if you look at the Basel norm is also talking about all these aspects that we're talking about here, right? The Basel PPTs which I shared with you. So if you look at those PPT, they are also talking about these risks, and primarily the credit risk more. Primarily the credit risk, because credit risk is the one area which is coming in Basel from Basel 1 till now. It is part of Basel norm. So you need to broadly focus on 3 risks, though you can talk about other risks. I don't stop you when I'm asking question, because it's an open-ended question, right? It is not in a closed-ended question. So but my intention would be to know more about these 3 risks from you, because these are the 3 main risks which factors in every financial institution, and they are these risks are the main risk which a financial institution looks at. So my idea of asking this question would be to assess you from the point of view of these three broad risks: credit, operational, and the market risk, right? So I would be looking at these questions from these 3 point of view. However, if you want to add in something more or something less, that is up to you, that you can do. Hope it is clear.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. No. You can read through the questions. You can go through. You can go through the questions, and I am here only, right? Yeah. So Neha has asked, what about liquidity? You can also cover the liquidity risk. So liquidity risk is when you don't have enough funds to manage your operation, manage your transactions, I will say. So that is the liquidity risk, right? So liquidity risk, you can connect it with the new requirements which regulators have put in on OTC world, OTC derivative world. So all the OTC derivative, one should be clearing through the central clearing parties, or if in case they're not able to go through that mode or that platform, then they're required to manage enough liquidity to ensure there is no risk involved when they are dealing with different counterparties, So if you look at the OTC derivative world and primarily the 2008 and 9 crisis, so it was realized there wasn't enough funds available to mitigate the risk of the counterparty because there wasn't enough liquidity. So therefore, to manage a liquidity risk, it has been made this as a rule. Either the derivative OTC derivative product should be cleared through the CCP, or if they are not able to, they can't go through the CCP platform, then they would require to manage enough liquidity so that in the event of default, that fund can be diluted and that can be used for the risk which a financial institution faces. So that is the idea of the liquidity risk. And what difficulties liquidity risk has. So you can just quote it with an example. If you go into a trade, if you do a trade, and if there is you need to put in margin because you are losing out on that trade due to mark-to-market movement. So there would be a call from the broker to increase mark-to-market. And if you don't have enough funds available with you, so you will not be able to cover the liquidity which the broker requires from you, and that is a risk to the whole trade. So what will happen if you're not able to cover that liquidity risk? The broker would sell your position in the open market to cover the risk which it has. So because you are not able to provide the enough margin for the trade that you have done with the counterparty, and you have received a call from the broker for topping up the margin account, and at that point in time you did not have enough money to cover the liquidity risk which the trade needed. Therefore, what the broker would do, broker would not like to keep that risk in his books. Broker would square off your position in the open market to cover the liquidity risk it has. So liquidity risk is quite important, you can say, in a sense. So it can cripple you if you don't have enough funds available. So when you know you would be able to make money on a trade that you've done today, looking at the various scenarios, maybe the trade is not doing good at the moment, but it may start doing good in the days to come, in the weeks to come. But you could not manage liquidity during that time. Therefore, the trade was sold off by the broker in the open market, and you lost everything that you had on the trade. You actually lost the position on that trade. So that is an example of a liquidity risk. So for your understanding what liquidity risk is, so you can quote this example what the liquidity is. So example right now, if you look at the whole thing that is unfolding nowadays, and also one of the example that I talked about in the previous class, the Franklin Templeton, right? What happened? That was the liquidity pressure, right? They also had a liquidity pressure. There was a lot of redemption requests which they received, and they did not have enough money available to fulfill those redemption requests. And at the same time, the bond market was not doing well, so they could not even sell those bonds in the open market to get enough money to cover up the redemption request. So it is a liquidity problem. So the bond is not selling off in the open market. At the same time, you are also not having enough surplus to manage those redemption requests which are coming from the investor, right? So what is happening at the end? It is taking a hit on your liquidity. You don't able to manage your liquidity well. So at the end, you might have to take a way to file a bankruptcy, or might reach out to the central bank for the help. And same happened with the other mutual funds. What happened when the Franklin Templeton filed, or rather they came up with this thing wherein they wanted to shut 6 of their mutual funds, primarily the debt fund. So at the same time, there was a lot of noise and lot of fear among the other mutual fund houses. They thought there could be more such requests coming their way, and that could lead to the similar chaos and problem at their end, which the Franklin Templeton had. So therefore, they reached out to the RBI asking an immediate liquidity, and then the RBI actually made a special liquidity fund for them to take care of such redemption requests and everything. So this is a prime example of liquidity risk that you can quote when you're talking about the risk. Okay. Okay, Arifa, you said I have a doubt in question 5. What is question 5? What is the role of CCP in OTC derivatives market, and what do you understand by non-centrally cleared margin? Okay, so as we discussed in the previous classes, CCP stands for centrally cleared parties. So they have started coming up for the OTC derivative market. Because if you look at the other derivative market or the equity market, there are already exchanges, so clearing houses available. They do the clearing and settlement of the products. But until some years back, there was no such clearing houses or exchanges available for the OTC derivative products. So after this 2008-9 crisis, it took some years to brainstorm, to contemplate about how the risk in the OTC world can be mitigated. So by various suggestions and various points, it was concluded there is a need to have a central clearing party which can facilitate OTC derivative product to ensure or mitigate the risk which it has. Right. So this was concluded after this 2008-9 crisis. It took some years. It is not after just 2009 crisis or 2008 crisis it came up all of a sudden. No, it took some years, close to 3 to 4 years of time. The G20 members a separate custodian, and there shouldn't be any netting and everything that can be allowed for the variation margin which they are dealing with. So this amount, which is called the initial margin, has to be managed by a third-party custodian, and it can't be touched by the parties involved in the trade. If in case it is not going through CCP. Clear margin, I've told you, this is what you understand non-centrally clear margin. This is the non-centrally clear margin. So you are keeping an initial margin aside. So this you can term as non-centrally cleared margin. This amount which you're keeping to foresee any challenges and any default that you can see in the imminent future or maybe in the years to come. So that amount or that initial margin is termed as non-centrally cleared margin. Hope it is making sense. Right.
So, sir, non-centrally cleared margin basically when there is not any margin in the trade deal, so it is a non-centrally cleared margin.
Yes, absolutely. When it is not going through CCP, so you require to have initial margin at your end. So that would be termed as non-centrally cleared margin. The initial margin that you are managing at your own end without the help of CCP, but you would have to keep set aside some amount basis a model that is called systematic initial margin model. That is there is a model that is called you need to manage enough money basis the calculation or model that is in the market. You would set aside an amount that you would not be touching, and that would be managed by a third-party custodian. So that amount would be, or that fund would be termed as non-centrally cleared margin, right? So that is not being cleared by the centrally clearing house, right? Centrally clearing house, CCPs. So that is why it is termed as non-centrally cleared margin. So initial margin, when you look at this term, it is being used in two ways. One is being used by the CCPs, Another is also by the parties who are not going through the CCPs. They are also required to manage initial margin at their end with the help of a third party custodian. So that is why it is termed as non-centrally cleared margin. Okay. All right. So you can just go through the other questions if you have any doubt, anything, or you can just read through. Let me know if in case anything you need to confirm or ask. Okay, so I guess there is a question by Neha. How MTA is different from threshold? Okay. Okay. So when you look at these two terms that we use in the collateral operation, so the MTA is minimum transfer amount, right? And threshold is a figure or is a number that is mutually agreed by the counterparties. They have this figure in place to forego a certain amount of credit exposure which they have with the counterparty. So one counterparty, or it might be applicable to both the parties, or it may be applicable to one party only. So what the party is doing, one party or maybe that both the parties are foregoing, allowing to forego the credit exposure which they have to each other. So why they are doing that? Because they have a good credit rating, right? They have a good credit rating, so they are giving a sort of a leeway to the parties involved into it, so that the counterparty, maybe there is a threshold of 5 million, right? So what the counterparty is saying, if there is a threshold of 5 million and you have a margin call of 20 million, right? So threshold of 5 million actually states you would forego the 5 million exposure that you have with the counterparty. So you would just be making a margin call of 15 million, not 20 million. So you are allowing yourself to decrease the exposure that you have with the counterparty, because you know the counterparty you're dealing with has a good credit rating, and therefore you are ready to take that risk that you're ready to take that risk of 5 million with the counterparty. So the 5 million is just an example I have quoted here. It is not always 5 million. It can be more, it can be less also, depending upon the various counterparties. The threshold is such. I'm telling you, this is the threshold. We kept a threshold of 5 million in the system, and it can be applicable maybe to one party. It can be applicable to both the parties. So whenever each party are sending a margin call, if both have got 5 million as a threshold on the agreement, so both the parties would just be sending the margin demand, excluding the 5 million exposure which they have on the which they have in the agreement as a value, right? So they would not be sending 20 million, they would just be sending 15 million as the margin demand amount, and that is termed as threshold amount. Right. When you look at the MTA is the figure that comes into calculation in the end. So you have taken into account the threshold piece. Now you would be, 15 million is the call amount which is being derived by doing the calculation. Now if the MTA amount is also 15 million, right? So there would be no margin call. If the MTA is also 15 million, there would not be any margin call, because the MTA says the minimum transfer amount should be 15 million and more. It should be more than 15 million. just give you an example. Though there is not such a huge MTA usually remains in the range of 25,000 or 10,000. This is how the MTA is. It can't be in million. I'm just giving an example to make you understand. So once you have done the calculation, you've taken into account the threshold, you've taken into account the mark-to-market figure, you subtract all the things, the collateral that you would be holding or you would have posted, you would be subtracting that also, right? So after that, you would come up with a figure which you need to ask from the counterparty. If that figure is less than the MTA figure, then you would not be sending the margin call to the counterparty. So that is how these two terms are different. The threshold is the term which actually comes into calculation in the beginning, and MTA is a term which comes into the calculation in the end, and to see if there is a need to place a margin call or there is no need to place a margin call. So that is how you relate MTA. Threshold is an exposure that you take. It's an exposure that you take in the beginning. MTA is the exposure that you take in the end. And the aim of both the exposure is, one is at the credit rating and everything, how the credit rating of the counterparty is, and the second MTA, which is again sort of a risk that you're taking with the counterparty, that is basically to stop your operational expenses. Because when you send a margin call, there are operational expenses involved into it. So you would like to not send margin call for every single penny. You have set a minimum transfer amount. You feel like if there is an amount of this much or higher, then only there is a point of sending a margin call. Hope that makes sense. So that is how this MTA and threshold are different. Any, maybe if not clear, or any doubt on this further?
So, sir, how it is different from the margin call? Because in margin call, where one party is a negative side or their position is negative, so it demand for the the positive party demand for the collateral, so that it can set off the credit risk exposure.
Right.
And in minimum transfer amount, you are saying that it comes at the end where we calculate it whether we need to ask for the minimum transfer amount. Is it something like that?
Right, absolutely. So just to make you understand it with an example. So let me just open it in the notepad. Just to give you an example about the same, so that it is clear. One second. Huh? Okay, so we can just to understand both the terms together, I will give you an example here. So this is the mark-to-market MTM, and let's take the MTM is it is negative. Not negative, I'll say positive. 15 million. Okay, and this is your USD, right? Now comes your threshold. Threshold as per the agreement is maybe 2 million. Okay. Okay. Now come the collateral. Collateral that you are holding. Collateral amount which you are holding right now is maybe 8 million. Just making up these numbers for just for an example, right? Okay, so now MTA would be here. MTA is maybe say 25,000. 25K. This is the MT amount, right? Now this is the calculation. This is the margin calculation I'm showing you. Now, what would be the margin amount I need to calculate, right? What would be the margin amount which I need to send to the counterparty? So if the MTA is 15 million, threshold is 2 million, and the collateral which I'm holding is 8 million. What should be the collateral demand? Collateral demand. So demand we can calculate here 15 minus 2, 10 minus 8, how much? 2. Agreed, everyone?
Agreed.
Right, so this is the call amount, this is the margin call amount which I would be sending. So where the thresholders come? Thresholders come here at second stage, right? And now the MTA. So 2 million is more than 25,000. 2 million is more than 25,000. So that means I would be sending the margin call. I can't hold my margin call because this amount is coming up bigger. Now let's take another example. I make it maybe let me make it 11 million 76,000. Okay, so this is the collateral amount which I'm holding. 15 minus 2, 13. 13 minus 11 something is how much it will come? This minus this minus this. Let me just quickly do it on because dollar symbol is there which is not taking it. कितना होगा? Right, 15 minus 2 minus okay, I guess this number is कुछ हमने बड़ा फिगर ले लिया था ना. $50 minus 2, that is 13. 13 minus 11. अभी भी I guess हमारा इससे ज़्यादा होगा. But in short, what I'm trying to tell you, if this amount is less than the total demand, collateral demand, so if you have this and 12, right, then it would be close to 24,000. Right. If I make it 12, right? If I made it make this amount as 12 collateral, 13 minus 12, then this amount would come close to 24,000. And 24,000 is less than 25. So would you be sending the margin call? No. Agreed, everyone? So that is how your MTN threshold is there. So, right? That is how MTN threshold is there. Any question, guys? Anything that comes to your mind? If this is not clear, what is threshold? What is MTA? Not difficult at all.
No questions.
Clear? Okay, so you can read through other questions maybe. Great. So read through other questions. Yeah.
So sir, what is fixed on this? MTA is fixed. MTA is fixed.
Yes, MTA is fixed. MTA is fixed and threshold is also fixed. Threshold is also fixed. Threshold would not be changing unless there is another agreement that you have done with the counterparty. So this figure and this figure would be fixed. This will change. Collateral will change, and your MTM will also change, right? MTM is the valuation of the trades, right? That will change every day, right? Similarly, the collateral, if you are posting 12,760,000 today, or you are having this amount, but if today you send a demand for 2 million, so you would be adding 2 million to 12 million that you already holding. So next day, the collateral figure will change to 14,760,000 when you, in the first case, when you send a margin call of 2 million, right? So next day it will change. So collateral and your MTM figure will change every day.
And sir, how margin call works?
So this is the margin call. This is the variation margin, right? This is, I'm telling you the example of variation margin, how it is working. Initial margin is, if you look at the initial margin, I'll give you an example for the initial margin. Hold on. Let us say the MTM is 1 million. Right? And then the initial margin is 50,000. And the maintenance margin is margin is 30,000, right? So what will happen? This is just for an example. I've given you these figures. So the MTM means the trade value on a given day is 1 million, and the initial margin which a broker has taken from you is the 50 million. Oh, sorry, not 50,000, 50,000, not million. Okay, so this is your 50,000. Okay, so this is the 50,000 that the broker has taken you. This amount has not been taken. This is just the valuation of the trade. 1 million is the valuation of trade. 50 million is the amount that has been taken up from the parties from both ends by the broker, or you can say by the exchange, because with the help of broker this is going to the exchange only. Right? Next day, the valuation of your trade comes to 90,000. Right? $90,000. One zero is more here. Okay. So next day the MTM becomes 90,000. So what will happen? So the 50,000 that you have given, it will reduce to 40,000. It will reduce to 40,000. So broker will debit your initial margin account by the difference that has come into the valuation of the trades. So one lakh you can say that has become 90,000 now. So broker will debit your initial margin amount, which was 50,000 in the beginning. Now it has come down to 40,000. Let's move on to another day. 80,000 is the MTM. So again the broker will debit 10,000 from the initial margin, right? So this initial margin is getting reduced. And when will you receive another margin call, initial margin call from your broker? When this amount becomes lower than the maintenance margin. Maintenance margin is 30,000. Now this is again 30,000, right? So until now you would not be receiving a margin call, but as long if the moment this amount is reduced by even 1 rupee, you would receive a margin call from a broker, and the broker will tell you to increase to top up your initial margin account up to 50,000. So you will have to infuse 20,000 rupees in the initial margin account to make it 50,000. So next day, assume it is 70,000. The valuation of the trade goes to 70,000. So what will happen? Your initial margin account will become 20,000, right? So the moment it is 20,000, what the broker will say, broker will call you up or may send a message, may send an email, there are various mode of communication which a broker follows. So given this valuation of the entire portfolio has become 70,000, which is 30,000 less than the initial value or the original value, and because of that your initial margin, which was 50,000 in the beginning, has been reduced to 20,000. Therefore broker will tell you to top up your initial margin account to 50,000. So that means initial margin call of how much amount? 30,000 will be sent to you. You would be sent at the initial margin amount of 30,000. So with that your initial margin account will become 50,000. Right? So you can say 20,000 plus 30,000 right? That is how your initial margin call comes to the people who deal with exchange and clearinghouse. This is an example of the variation margin. This is an example of your initial margin. So initial margin has got this maintenance margin also, which is not there in case of variation margin. If you look at this example of variation margin, we did not talk about the maintenance margin here. But in case of a call which a broker sends to its clients when they are dealing on the CCP or when they're dealing through exchanges and clearing houses, this is a sort of a model is followed. The mark to market will be there. Initial margin account would be there. The maintenance margin account would be there. Whenever the initial margin amount is short by the maintenance margin account, then the broker would be sending a margin call to the client stating you need to top up your initial margin account up to the requirement. So requirement is 50,000, so it has gone to 20,000. Need to put in 30,000 more into the account to make it 50,000. Right? Clear, guys? This example.
Clear, sir, clear. So, if mark to mark model, if you see
Yeah.
M to MCC mark to market, so as soon as your MTM goes down, the broker will use your initial margin
Right.
at that time, and when your initial margin touches your maintenance margin, it will send you a call for the margin call
Right.
that
Absolutely.
you have to do for a top. Okay, understood, sir.
Correct.
And it will go till the date of maturity of the trade deal.
Yeah, it will continue the same model, same way will continue till the maturity of the trade.
Okay, understood.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
So can you take by one now, please?
Huh? Yeah, Apur?
Yes, we can take a by one now.
Yeah, I can take your Viva now. So before guys, I close the call. Maybe any question, last question, or anything that you have, then I can maybe start with the Viva for Apur. And if anyone else also want to appear for the Viva, you can just let me know, and I can complete it today. Okay. Okay, so guys, take 2-3 minutes. We can wait for. I'll pause here. You just scan through the questions. If you need to ask any more questions, then I'll have to close the call, and I'll give you back the rest of the time for your preparation, and for others who want to give it on next Saturday, you can prepare, and otherwise you can wait for the Viva call. I would be making on your cell phones. So I pause here for 5 minutes. We can take a break. Then I can just I can take a final as in final responses from you, and then we can close the call. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
can you explain question number 6?
Question
As
number
I have,
6.
yeah, मैंने basal attend नहीं किया था class, so I'm not clear.
Okay. Basal 3.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Basel 3. Okay, so Basel, there are 3 Basel norms that we have: Basel 1, Basel 2, Basel 3, right? So Basel 1 is primarily talking about credit risk, and Basel 2 talks about 3 things. One is your operational risk, credit risk, and the market risk. And this is in Basel 2: credit risk, operation risk, and market risk, right? So this is in Basel 2. Apart from these things, the 3 pillars, you can say 3 pillars has Basel 2. One is the risk pillar, another is the supervisory review pillar, and then the last pillar is the disclosure pillar. Disclosure and discipline pillar for the market participant or the financial institution who are in the financial markets. Right. So this Basel 2 is designed completely on these 3 pillars. Right. So Basel 2 talks about the credit risk which one party has with the other party, and they have given a ratio which every, as in the capital adequacy ratio, which every financial institution needs to maintain to mitigate the risk which a financial institution has. So what ratio Basel 2 has proposed? They have proposed a 8% ratio for capital adequacy. So every financial institution need to maintain a 8% buffer or 8% money to mitigate the risk which they have. And how they have come up with this 8%? 8% is basically the tier 1 capital plus tier 2 capital divided by the risk weighted asset. Risk weighted asset is primarily the banks have to figure out which area they find more risk. So they divide the capital which is generated through tier 1 capital and tier 2. What the tier 1 has? Tier 1 has your equity capital, you can say, plus the cash reserve which bank manages. That is primarily made up of tier 1 capital. And tier 2 capital is made up of your deposits and everything which bank has. Bonds which bank has issued goes into tier 2 capital. So tier 1 plus tier 2 capital is the capital of the bank. Then they divide this capital with the risk weighted asset. So they see the assets which have got risk. So that risk is the denominator, and the capital, which is tier 1 and tier 2, is your numerator. So numerator and the numerator is divided by the risk which the bank has, and that is that amount shouldn't be, so whatever the amount comes, so with that amount they need to have a 8% they need to keep aside. So that is the Basel norm 2 says. Now when you look at the Basel 3, what Basel 3 has amplified, this is there in Basel 2 also, Basel 3 also, this 3 pillars are also in Basel 3, but Basel 3 has further classified or further has given few more things to the credit risk. There are some financial institutions who are very heavily engaged into investment banking products, and they are doing trading using the deposits and various other things. So for those banks, this capital requirement which is coming from tier 1 and tier 2, they have increased. The tier 1 capital should be more than the tier 2 capital. Earlier it was 4% tier 1, 4% tier 2. That is how this 8% was coming out. This 8% capital adequacy ratio was being derived from 4% from tier 1 capital and 4% from tier 2 capital. So in Basel 3 has given more of the strength. In a sense, they have asked the financial institution to set aside 6% capital from tier 1 if they have a more credit exposure with a selected counterparties. So they need to set aside 6% of tier 1, not from tier 2 capital, because tier 2 is not the bank's capital, it is more from deposit and from the bond issued by the bank. So therefore it is, and then they were also talked about counter-cyclic buffer. Counter-cyclic buffer is to see if there is more pressure which bank may have to manage in future due to the risky deals which they have done with the various financial institutions. Right, so the one is the credit exposure which they have. If they have the credit exposure, more credit exposure, they need to set aside 2% more from the tier 1 capital, that is 6%. So if I just tell you in normal Excel file, so when you say CAR, right, CAR stands for capital adequacy ratio. It should be tier 1 capital, right, and it should be 4% plus tier 2 capital, again 4%. Okay, then you divide it by risk weighted asset, RWA, I will say, and this figure shouldn't be less than 8%. This is what Basel 2 is saying, right? And apart from this thing, what Basel 2 more is talking about, that is the supervisory review. Supervisory review is the financial institution should be reviewed by the regulators. That is the supervisory review. Regulators of those geographies, those jurisdictions should be reviewing the strength, weaknesses of the financial institution to assess how well placed the financial institutions are in those respective countries. That is the supervisory review. So this is the risk pillar I'm saying. Pillar number 1, the risk pillar. Pillar 2 would be your supervisory review, right? This is, and pillar 3 is your disclosure. pillar 3 is disclosure. Disclosure, or you can say market discipline. Market discipline, what does it mean? That means while you are dealing with the investors, you need to disclose things very clearly, and the other counterparts or other financial institutions should have enough knowledge about how you are functioning in the environment, so that there shouldn't be a risk which one counterparty should be having because of the other counterparty, or rather not counterparty, I'll say, because of the other bank. One bank, they have an interbank dealings also, right? One bank deals with the other bank. In the cash crunch environment, one bank can borrow money from the other bank. So if there is not enough disclosure or market discipline between the banks also, it will lead to a bigger cause of, it can lead to a bigger problem, rather, I'll say. So that market discipline is for the investors and also as well as for the interbank deals or banks themselves. Supervisory review is for the regulators. When they are reviewing, there should be more checks and balances done by the regulator to see how the financial institutions are doing in the respective countries. So this is the three things are part of, three pillars are part of Basel 2. In Basel 3, this tier 1 capital has been made to 6% when a bank has more risk with the banks or with the counterparties in that particular country. Then this tier 1 should be 6% and tier 2 should be 2%. That is how the risk pillar is defined in Basel 3. Similarly, there is another term which is counter-cyclical buffer, which has been again, it can be 1.5% to 2.5%. That will again go from tier 1 capital itself if the banks are having lot of riskier deals in the portfolio which they're managing, right? So this is again falls into risk pillar. Supervisory review and disclosure are also there in Basel 3. And what they are doing, they are more going into depth. This supervisory review initially was at the market level, was not at the financial institution level, but this has gone into at the financial institution level in Basel 3. Similarly, for the market discipline also, it has gone at the institution level. So it has been more minutely measured and minutely observed for the financial institution in case of Basel 3. If you look at, so these pillars are same in Basel 3 also, which are there in Basel 2. And if the comparison we see, the comparison is this: Basel 3 is more robust, more tough, more strong, so that it can actually takes care of the risks which it can take care of the risk of the various financial institutions, because they are spread differently with a different financial institution. Therefore, the risk parameters should be defined in such a way those risk factors can really be mitigated. So that is what the Basel 3 actually talks about. Maybe because it is a bit complex, to be honest. I have told you in my previous class also when you talk about Basel 3. So you need to take a reading with 2 readings with the slide that I've given to you. Then it would be more comfortable. Fair enough? Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so guys, so if there is no more questions, so what I'll say, maybe I can, we guys can take, so all others would take mock on next Saturday other than Apur, right? Or is there any more who want to go for the mock today? Okay. Okay, fair enough.
Sir, I want to say something.
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, I'm ready with the mock, but if you can take my mock at the evening, 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, because
okay,
in the evening, sir, I have prepared my 8 questions, 8 topics. Just the risk and the my vessels are which I need to prepare, and to prepare at the evening. Till the evening, I can give you the mock. So I don't want to go in the next mock test, because it will be a burden for me, because I know in the next mock test I would not be able to give all the questions, all the topics together in a mock. So I can, if you can give me the evening time, when I can give you
No
the
problem.
mock.
Fair enough, no problem. So you can take, you can maybe take a few more hours. So maybe I can give you a call in the evening to take your mock in the evening. That's not a problem. I can do that. All right.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
probably
You know,
in the evening.
Yeah.
I'll try to give in the evening, and if possible, then take another 10 questions on Sunday, please, because I only have time for Saturday. The whole
If you can, okay. So you want to, you also want to give your mock on in the evening?
yes, sir.
Okay, for the first 10 questions you're saying, right?
Yes, sir. But another 10 questions on another Sunday, sir.
Yeah, which is fair enough because as of now I'm just taking 10 questions for the mock, and for the remaining
Okay, sir.
ones I would be taking on Sunday only, or Sunday or maybe Saturday, whichever is okay.
Okay, sir.
All right. So guys, so with this I close here, right? Unless you have a question for me. So I will, after 10 minutes, Purv, I'll make a call to you for your mock.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, guys. Take care. Prepare well. All the best.
okay, sir. Thank you. And sir, I want to say you are just,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
expectation from the finance minister is now zero. So it was only your hope. So आपने आप ही के पास था, तो आपने अच्छा हुआ एक और अपॉर्चुनिटी दिया. देखो FM से तो हमारी कुछ उम्मीद है नहीं. So whenever we see so there's something FM is going to going to do a press conference, so we all know हाँ क्या expectation है, हमको पता है, तो कोई जरूरत नहीं है देखने का.
Because this will continue like this way only. They will come up with one lollipop or the other. Because they really don't have anything in their hands. This is gone out of their hand, and to make up demand, it will really take time to make up demand, because I don't know how they will make up demand. Supply side, they're putting quite a lot of things, but demand is the problem. Unless there is a demand, and for to increase demand, there are a lot of things they have to do. One is the underlying problem which is going on, which if there is no answer to the underlying problem, then probably demand will remain diluted. It would not be same. Demand will remain dampened, I'll say. It would not be aggressive in nature, and at the same time, people don't have jobs. Also, people have fear. Migrants which have gone back, they would not be ready to come soon. A lot of things. So, but I am just trying to keep you engaged, given the because I know this is a time which everyone is expecting things, but from the educational point of view, this is more of engagement that I'm just trying to keep with you guys, so that you don't feel bogged down, feel more of the pressure, right? So that is the best thing that we can together do, right? Okay, so with this, I close, guys, and I'll maybe probably take Akriti and Ajay's mock in the evening, and for Apurv, I'll be giving a call in next 10 minutes time. Okay, Apurv?
Okay, sir.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care, guys. See you.
Okay, sir. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.